My good people, what's going on? It's your boy, Cornelius Jones. We are back again for another video. And before we get started, it's very important you have to understand that this video is for educational purposes only. Investing in crypto can be very risky and there are no guarantees of profits. I am not a financial advisor and this information is not financial advice. Do your own research and consult your financial advisor before you get involved in any financial programs. With that said, let's jump in the video. Garlinghouse was speaking recently for Binance Blockchain Week. And oh my goodness, I'm going to show you the video and I'm going to cover some great things that he said. Before we get into it, tonight is Thursday night and you have a wonderful opportunity to find out about DeFi staking protocols that can help you boost your wealth building strategy. If you already have Bytnex contracts and you are interested in promoting and sharing the opportunity, tonight's Zoom meeting is for you. If you do not have any Bytnex contracts and you want to find out more information, in the description of the video, we have a link where you can watch a recorded Zoom so you can find out all the information you need to make an informed decision for you and your family. This is a wonderful opportunity, people. Don't pass up information. At least get the information. Information is free. Once you get the information, you're going to be glad that you did because you're going to be equipped with wonderful knowledge about financial products that are going to help you gain wonderful wealth in your retirement. All right, let's get into the content.
The best is yet to come. Brad, why do you think the bears are back in the market?
Well, why the bears back in the market? You know, look, first of all, thank you for having us. I think this is an incredible event. It's my first time to join this event, but hopefully look back to being next year as well. And obviously good to see you both. I think crypto has gone through cycles. And when you have risk on, people are excited. They are, now you have kind of a risk off moment. There's uncertainty. I personally will echo some of the things Richard said. There are so many macro factors that are continuing to provide tailwinds for this industry that I think as we go into 2026, I don't remember being this optimistic in the last handful of years where you do have, as Richard said, regulatory clarity in the largest economy in the world. And I think people underprice this. 22% of global GDP is the United States, and this is a market that has been really openly hostile to crypto for 4 or 5 years, or maybe longer. And now you have that has changed significantly pretty quickly, but the institutions are still catching up with that to some degree. You saw Franklin Templeton on stage here, you saw BlackRock on stage. Just this week, I think Vanguard has now opened up, Vanguard historically has said, we won't touch crypto. And now they've had a massive sea change. That's just one of many things that are creating those tailwinds. And so I'm super optimistic about the year ahead. The last thing I'll say on this, which I think we'll also probably all agree about on this, is we are also seeing real-world applications where it's not just about the speculation. You're finding easier to use interfaces so that crypto isn't just about the speculation. It's about solving real-world problems. And to sustain that long-term optimism, that long-term bull market, I think you're going to see more and more of that.
What's your take on this too? Do you think the ETF floor was overhyped?
Definitely no. Look, obviously what you were describing is all data correct, but I think you got to zoom out a little bit further and realize that this ETFs didn't exist because of the regulatory problems in the United States. They didn't exist. And, in the last 2 or 3 weeks, over $700 million have flown into XRP ETFs, which is just it's pent-up demand from institutional investors, from investors who want access because they don't want to custody themselves, what have you. But look, again, if you zoom out to the macro level, the total ETF market, only 1 or 2% of the total ETF market is crypto. I will bet anybody here that a year from now, that will be more than 1 or 2%. There's going to continue to be inflows. And yes, you can take a snapshot of time and say, okay, there's a billion left Bitcoin ETFs or whatever the data you cited a moment ago. But if you zoom out a little bit further and say, okay, over 2026, do we really think crypto ETFs are only going to be 1 or 2% of the total ETF market? No chance. And so that, again, is one of those macro tailwinds where Ripple sits in a position where we see, particularly from our Ripple Prime, the prime brokerage business, we see a lot of interesting activity where institutions that have been on the sidelines, maybe because of regulatory clarity, maybe because of risk aversion, for whatever reasons they've been on the sidelines, they're getting involved. And they're starting small, and they're going to walk, then they're going to crawl, then they're going to walk, then they're going to run. And I think it's going to create a lot of tailwind.
So this moment in the market hasn't necessarily spooked institutional capital. That's what you're saying?
Definitely not.
Okay. Can you talk a little bit more about the institutional adoption here and what you're seeing in terms of real-world payments as well on the stablecoin side?
Well, I mean, the stablecoin point you're making particularly, I think you are absolutely right that as people kind of went risk off, they stayed on stablecoins, which is indicative of, as Richard's describing, the utility, the 24/7 nature of a stablecoin, but it's also trust. Where maybe years ago they might have said, I want to get into a fiat that I trust even more, but people are recognizing that stablecoins can be stable and easier to manage. But look, this region in particular leaned into regulatory clarity early. Ripple launched a stablecoin just over a year ago. It's just passed about $1 billion market cap. But now it's also been approved in, whitelisted in Abu Dhabi as well as in Dubai and the DIFC. It's good collateral on various platforms from a lending point of view. And I think that the tailwinds just on solving real problems and good collateral that's easy to move and is more flexible and can be moved multiple times a day even, that wasn't possible before. And I think we're going to see a lot of unlocks that, when Ripple thinks about this, and it's an honor to be up here with these two, we want Solana to do great, we want Binance to do great, because I think we're still bringing people into the ecosystem. Stablecoins are one way of doing that. There are going to be lots of other applications, some that Ripple builds, some that are built in the Solana ecosystem, and some that Binance builds.
Speaking of the big guy, President Trump in the US, let's flip it over and talk about what's happening stateside, because, Brad, you've also said in the past that the US regulatory environment is, and I quote here, hostile. So do you think that's changed for the better? And what are you seeing right now in terms of the regulatory roadmap in the United States that will ultimately impact your business as well?
Look, I think one of the things that Binance has done incredibly well, the numbers that Richard's talking about 300 million people, they're bringing people into crypto. We all want, there's an echo chamber that we all experience of people in crypto. But the amazing thing about the passionate pioneers that are here in this room is they've been in. We just want that audience to grow. And I think what you're seeing happen in the United States with regulatory clarity, Richard earlier referenced the Genius Act. The Genius Act is regulatory clarity for stablecoins. And you're already seeing more institutional interest in stablecoin payments. Ripple purchased a company called G Treasury recently, which has visibility into over $10 trillion of payments from their corporate customers. And the number of those customers who are already, the acquisition closed Monday. The number of those customers that are already approaching us interested in leveraging stablecoins for the flexibility, for better yield, for as a trusted resource, because of that clarity, people are leaning in. We don't yet have, obviously Ripple went through a long lawsuit with the US government, and XRP received regulatory clarity from the federal courts. We have been championing, and I know Team Solana has been championing regulatory clarity for crypto broadly in what is generally called the Clarity Act in the United States. There's still forward momentum on that. I don't think it's going to happen this year, which the President Trump has kind of championed. But I think sometime in the first half of next year, we'll see passage of legislation, which will continue to unlock and create more tailwinds for the whole industry. I'll go out on the limb and I'll say Bitcoin 180,000 December 23rd or December 31st, 2026.
All right, where's the prediction market around that now? We'll be live in 2 seconds.
Gotta love it, people. Gotta love it. And so we're going to break down this clip here. Obviously, this was a clip. We didn't hear the entire conference. However, the very first question that was asked just shows everything we need to know about retail investors, right? Ripple has all these wonderful things going on right now with all of the acquisitions, all the partnerships, the tech that they're adding to XRP to make it bank compliant. So many things, so many wonderful things to talk about, infrastructure things that are going to build utility for the future. But what is the question? They want to know, what about the price, right? They didn't say it that way. He asked, why are the bears back in the market? You see, retail investors are only concerned with that. They can't see anything else. All they want to know is price, 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 price. If the bears are in the market, when's the next bull cycle? If we're in a bull cycle, how long is it going to last? Everything regarding price is the focal point for retail investors. But ladies and gentlemen, Brad Garlinghouse properly shifted the focus to the utility that is coming for XRP. First thing he said is that regulatory clarity in the country with the largest GDP in the world is coming. I love that because I just made that point in a video I made a few days ago. The United States has the largest GDP in the world. So when that country gets on board with regulation in crypto, that will be a great domino to set everything ablaze with the entire system, with the entire world. But right now, institutionally, they are still catching up. We are so early. It's like in the 1990s where the internet was back then. The only good thing, though, is that the adoption of crypto is going to be much faster than the adoption of the internet. So between now and the next 2 or maybe 3 years, the adoption growth for XRP and crypto is going to be much more significant than what we saw on a much grander scale than what we saw with the internet. He touched on Vanguard, how historically Vanguard has said they will never touch crypto. But look how those tailwinds have changed. Vanguard now is offering XRP products, Solana products, Bitcoin, Ether, and they are on board with this transition. Banks are starting to get involved, and he said they're going to what? They're going to crawl, they're going to walk, and they're going to run. Right now, we are in the crawling phase of adoption when it comes to crypto. But like I've been saying, Brad Garlinghouse expects that legislation for market clarity is going to come sometime in the first half of 2026. I've been expecting clarity to come at the latter half of this year for a long time. But now that we're getting closer and we're reading the developments that are coming out of the Senate, it is very clear that we are not going to get legislation this year. That would be a very tall task. If we do, my mouth would drop. I'd be surprised. So we're looking at first quarter 2026, or maybe sometime in the middle of the second quarter in 2026. However, when this clarity is the clarity that is coming, once it happens, XRP and Ripple will be unlocked. Unlocked for the value appreciation to match all of this infrastructure news that we've been hearing about. You see, retail investors are not swayed by market infrastructure news, but that's okay. Leave it to the sophisticated investors to do the real fundamental analysis and understand where we are going. We understand what this technology is and what it is we actually hold. It's an actual tool that will be used in the new financial system for global liquidity, remittance payments, cross-border settlements. Ladies and gentlemen, do you have good custody for your crypto? When you achieve all of this wealth, how are you going to liquidate your crypto? How are you going to spend it? Even if you're only using the crypto that you're earning in interest, as much XRP we're going to have, and as much as XRP is expected to be valued by those of us who know what it is, even in the interest payments, that's still going to be millions and millions of dollars for a lot of people. You can't liquidate that on Coinbase. You can't liquidate that on Uphold, right? So if you need great crypto custody, I recommend Caleb & Brown. Caleb & Brown is a wonderful institutional grade crypto custody firm. You get access to a broker that you can call, that you can ask questions to, and it doesn't cost anything additional. This is a great way to secure your assets, and they can liquidate millions and millions of dollars directly into your checking account. This is the type of custody service that we are all going to need once the crypto valuation reaches the numbers that are going to make us wealthy. So get your account set up, get prepared now so that when the wealth comes, you'll be all set and ready to go. This is your boy Cornelius Jones. All links are in the description of the video for Caleb & Brown and for DeFi hybrid smart contracts. This is your boy Cornelius Jones. I'm going to holler at you on the next video. Y'all have a blessed one and take care.